All right, how you guys doing? So occasionally on my channel here, I like to share personal stories that are relevant to the content that I discuss. So that's what I have for you right now. When I was younger, I want to say maybe 9 or 10, my mom and my stepdad, my mom and dad had already split up, but my mom had remarried and had a stepdad, and he ran around on her and everything, and so we're living in this place, and he splits, and at the time I saw my mom was upset, and I don't know if that was my motivation behind saying what I'm about to tell you that I said, but I think it's normal for kids to do this too. I think this is normal when kids see that a parent she wasn't crying unconsolably, but she was certainly upset, and I knew she was upset. But I said to her, an angel came to me in a dream or something, or somehow it was communicated to me. Spoke to me. A little birdie said or something that the guy's gonna come back. My stepdad's gonna come back. Now I didn't know this, and I know people have said these things. Oh, I had a vision. I had a dream that this or that. And there may be something to it. There may not be. I'm thinking there's probably less likely that there's anything to it, because I guess if the Lord came to them and God spoke to them and an angel came to them in a dream. And we've heard stories about those things. And so some people might say, well, here's a clear-cut example of the thing that you're trying to disprove and say doesn't exist, and it even happened to you. Well, that's what I'm here to tell you today, is that I think that the motivation was make mom feel better. And I think that's the case for many people, is they try to say, Grandpa and Grammy, or if you've lost a loved one or whatever, someone's looking down on you from heaven and it makes us feel better, to say that. Or they're not suffering anymore and they're in heaven and they're with the angels and with God and Jesus and all, and it's like, it's fairy tale stuff. But I understand that it's therapeutic, that it helps people, consoles them when they're grieving, and I get that may be the only purpose that it serves, is that, and that it doesn't matter whether it's real or not. That's a good thing if it helps somebody, right? And so I acknowledge that. So I think with my comment that I made to my mother back then, I don't think there's any basis for it. I don't think there's any legitimate basis. I think it was just made up. It's a lie. It's a white lie, a lie that I told my mother to make her feel better, because even in those times, like, I remember the story, and I'm so removed from it because it's been so many years later. My recollection of it, even at that time, I don't remember it really being like an angel really came. It just seemed like nice things to say. So, all these kids that say they've had experiences where they've died and gone to heaven and come back, and Jesus said it wasn't my time and he had to send me back to be with mom and dad or whatever, and to be with my family, I don't know. There's all these near-death experiences and things that people talk about like this. It's kind of hokey, and it's just there are things. They described they're above their body in the ER and all. And I get it, but to me, there's probably other explanations for what these experiences are that people have. And many Christians have made these assertions before, and sometimes there's really no good explanation for why it is that this experience has happened to these people. And I don't have an explanation. But is the only explanation going to be that it's some supernatural activity? Probably not. I'm sure we could try to sit here and think hard enough and long enough, and we might come up. And what if we don't? Does it still mean that it was a supernatural act of God? Not necessarily. So, yeah, did an angel come to me, and did somehow God or Jesus reveal to me that my stepdad was going to return to my mom? No, probably not. It was just something nice to say. If you allow for the possibility for those kind of things to happen, then how much more is it for other big things that really need to happen? And if those things don't happen, then if the big things don't happen, then how can we believe little things like little cutesy stories like that? Why are we to believe that those actually could happen? So we don't see any big things happening. I'm trying to think of an example of a big thing, something that would be bigger than just you having a premonition or a dream about something, and even dreams don't mean anything. It's just activity in the subconscious. I mean, I don't know. Some people say, "Oh, I'm a dream interpreter, and your dream means this." Even in the Bible, they talked about this dream means this, and there was an interpreter that said that Joseph had a dream about this and that, and whatever. It was about his brothers and how they had betrayed him, and some of you might know the story I'm talking about, but I just don't. I'm not saying that it couldn't happen, but it seems that if it does happen, it happens very far few in between times. It's not a regular occurrence. But people would say the fact that if it could be proven that it was some kind of supernatural, there you go, smoking gun. That proves that God really exists, and He does communicate with people through angels and through the Holy Spirit and that sort of thing. I mean, I guess, but I think it's less likely. I think that those are things that we tell people to comfort them in their time of need, and I think that's the motivation behind it. You say, well, where would a kid get an idea like that? Well, I was raised in the church, so it's not like I never heard of those kind of things happening, or people asserting that they were happening. It doesn't mean that they really were. It could just be coincidental that I said that, and this is the other part of the story that I didn't tell you. The guy actually came back. So, you see, there you go. See, you had a premonition from God. He gave you a vision, and he told it to you, and then He delivered on His promise, and then it did happen. What are the odds that He wouldn't come back? 50-50. What are the odds that He would come back? 50-50. I mean, so it just happened to be that what I spoke, roll the dice, and probability. It just happened. That's all. Now, what would become if I had told her that He would come back and He didn't? Well, then obviously I didn't know what the heck I was talking about. But she was saying it's like sometimes yes, sometimes no, sometimes maybe, sometimes not. It's like, so I mean, I don't know. I mean, I understand that these are things that Christians like to hold on to, that give them hope, or people that are spiritually minded or supernaturally minded. They like to think of these kind of things, and it makes them feel good to think that this stuff is true and that it's really God or an angel or some Holy Spirit communicating with them. That it's just like having contact, like with an alien being or something. And I understand that, but no. Just because I was able to call it like it happened, and just take a gamble and take a guess, doesn't mean that somehow knowledge of the future was bestowed upon me. I think we can all agree on that, right? I mean, we can see that I just got lucky. On making that call. But But Christians will do that. They look at something as simple as what I'm telling you, this story, and they latch a hold of it and say, "Oh, this is evidence, smoking gun for the see, the Lord told me to take that job," or this or that. It's like, I mean, and I don't know that no voice they're not hearing, but people have hallucinations, so maybe it's an hallucination. I just don't know, and I acknowledge that. But to me, I don't think that's what was happening, And if it makes somebody feel better to say that it was a supernatural act, and they're comforted by that, hey, whatever. But I don't think that's what's really what happened, and I don't think that people really do hear from God. I think they interpret, they associate, they process things in a certain light, in a certain way, through the lenses that they already have, preconceived notions about things. They're already primed to believe in these sort of things. So anytime anything that remotely seems like it could be construed as a supernatural act from a divine God, they latch a hold of that, and they just lap it up. They love it, and it's like, oh, smoking gun, it proves it's true, and they just love it. They're just tickled by that stuff, and it's very hokey. It's not. I mean, that's just my opinion. Again, I know I try to be sensitive to people's faith, people's belief, but on my channel here, this is what I discuss, and I think it's a bunch of horse shit. I don't think it's true. It's you can't have in one instance something be like, yeah, okay, that's not true, and then in another instance be like, oh yeah, that is true. If there are no supernatural acts, there are no supernatural acts of God. I mean, if there are, there are. If there aren't, there aren't. There's not. Sometimes there is, and sometimes there isn't. So, well, why not? Why can't he use his discretion? And sometimes he may speak to people, and he may, share and impart knowledge of give a premonition, or like foretelling of the future, and so that well, there's many other times where he could do that he simply doesn't, and they're on way more important issues than whether or not my stepdad comes back to my mom. There were way more important other issues than that, but yet He's silent on those issues. So people cherry pick. Christians cherry pick and choose what they're going to focus on and what they want to make out of a situation. If they want to make something of it, they will. And they're going to attribute it to God. That's just how they do it. Anyways, thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it, got something out of it. We'll see you next time. Take care.